250 Suzuki Ozark in here, and I rebuilt the carburetor on it a week ago, and it's still dripping gas out of the bottom of it. So every once in a while we have that problem, and in those cases I just replace the whole carburetor. Most of the time a new needle will, a new float needle will make them stop leaking gas, and sometimes they'll leak anyway. So we'll just replace the carburetor with one I got online. I think it was about 50 bucks. So anyway, we'll start by taking the seat off. And I've already removed the side cover on the left side, so I'll take this one off. Now on Suzuki's they have these plastic pop-in rivets, and on these you just push the button in the middle, and then it releases it. Okay, there's someone out there that's going to say, "Oh, I broke some of those." That's how those come out. All right, so you just push the center in, and then it'll pop out. All right, I think there's one there too. Push the center in, pop out. Slides off. It's got two ears right there that slide in these grooves here. The one there that slides in here. So to take it off, you slide it back, and then it'll come out. All right, let's take the air filter off. Pop those two clips out, and we're going to replace the air filter. So go ahead and take it out. Okay, set that aside. Now, I believe on this one we can leave the air filter box in place and just simply take off the inlet pipe that goes from the air filter box to the carburetor. Should be able to loosen this clamp and this clamp, and then take this inlet pipe off. Go ahead and loosen those up. What am I doing with a screwdriver? We don't play games around here with screwdrivers. We keep from it. And take the screw all the way out on this clamp. Make it a lot easier. Just take the screws out. We'll just pop it loose. Push it to the side. And there's a breather pipe, a hose that just plugs onto there. Just unplug it. Now we need to loosen the clamp on the intake manifold. Okay, I'll have to get to it from the other side. Okay. So loosen this clamp on the manifold. All right. Now we'll go ahead and unhook our fuel line. This one's had a zip tie, zip tied around it. We'll just cut that off of there. ahead and unplug the drain hose out of the bottom of the carburetor. We'll just go ahead and take it off and leave it there. Since I've got that loosened already, I'll go ahead and just grab the carburetor, just pull it to the side, and it'll come right off of there. So we can get it down here. Okay, right up here is a vent hose that goes to the side of the carburetor. Just slip it out of there. And you can see right here where it's attached to the side of the carburetor is a vent. Okay. So now we're going to unhook our choke cable. We'll get out here where I can get to it better. It's going to be a 12 millimeter. I've taken this cheap little wrench. I got it one of them cheap tool cells, and I cut a notch in it. So it's kind of like a line wrench, so it slips over the line like that. And also I grinded it down. You can see I've grinded down and buffed it where it's real thin. Okay, not going to be putting very much pressure on it. This is a plastic nut, and I had to do that because there's such tight tolerances, and all these carburetors are like that. There's no space in there, so I had to grind down this little cheap stubby wrench. And I also made this one too. Hit it with a torch and bent it and grind it down, because sometimes that's real handy as well. I'll try this one first. Get on there. Okay. It's still tight even with it being ground off. Yeah. After loosening with a wrench, you should be able to turn it by hand. And that's unscrewed. You just pull it straight out. That's what the end of the choke plunger looks like. So as I slide my choke lever up and down, okay, that's off choke, and that's with the choke on. And what it does is it pulls this needle out of the seat that's way inside there. You see that hole on the very bottom? That needle tip goes in it, and so when you turn the choke on, it pulls that needle tip out of that hole and allows gas to flow through it to let extra gas go into the throat of the carburetor. Comes out that hole right there. Okay. So now I've got the choke cable off. We'll turn it over, and it's going to drain gas out, but it's okay. Take these 3 screws out. A lot of times these are extremely tight. I've got a small pair of vice grips I have to use a lot of times to loosen them. Okay, so here's the rubber seal that goes around that. Take that in the screws and set them aside. Now, this is the throttle cable. As I hit the throttle, you see how it works. You see the butterfly in the throat of the carburetor. That's a wide open throttle. Okay, and that's where it's attached at right there. So what I'm going to do is first, I'm going to move it all the way open with my thumb and put my finger into the butterfly to hold it open. So you can see the cable is rolled up now. Okay, so I'm going to take my pick tool and grab the cable right there. Okay, just to line it up. And then you just pull. Let's see if I can get it where you can see it well. Okay, we're going to slip this brass out and hope it doesn't fly out and disappear. Okay, it's almost out, so I'm going to take it with my fingers. Okay, now you see the way it's attached on the end of the cable. I'll put it in here where you can see it. It has a slot in the bottom of this brass fitting. Okay, you can see the end of the cable. So I'm going to slip it off of there. That's what it looks like. It has a hole in a big hole on one side and just a slot on the other for that the end of the cable will hold into. Okay. All right. Now we've got to unthread the cable from the carburetor. Okay, that's normally 8 millimeter. That's what fits most four-wheelers. Okay, and just loosen the long the long nut. Sometimes you have to loosen this jam nut, but most time you just loosen it here and then just unscrew it. It's kind of long-winded. Okay, now you got the carburetor off. Alright, be back in a few minutes, put the new one on. Alright, this is the great unveiling of a brand new carburetor. Ta-da! Alright, so the new carb actually comes with a new drain hose on the bottom of the carburetor. This vent hose comes with a new one of those. Okay, so we just want to compare. Always compare your new one to your old one to make sure they're the same carburetor. Alright. So, throat size is the same. The diaphragm's made the same on top, you can tell. The throttle cables are the same. The idle adjustment screws are the same. So it all looks good. Also, on this side, this old one had a plug in this pipe here, and the new one does as well. So we'll just leave that on there if yours didn't have anything hooked to it. Alright, so we're going to unthread the new choke cable in. With my fancy wrench. Okay, see, look how close it is right there. So now we've made sure they're both identical carburetors. The new carburetor came with the choke pieces, and I've already removed them. Okay, we're going to put this on our old cable because sometimes these needles fit differently in the aftermarkets than they do in the factories. So we always put the aftermarket needle on our old cable to match the carburetor. So what we're going to do is let the cable come all the way out. Okay, we're going to just pull this spring up. And there it goes. Okay. Just pull. You see how it goes on there? Just pull the spring up and then turn it sideways and it'll come off. That one came off very easy. Yeah. And you can tell how the needles are made different. They're real close, but there's a different tip on that one, on the new one. Alright, so slide this on there first, seat it all the way up. Okay. Put the new spring on it. Now, push the needle on sideways till the cable sticks to the end, and then turn it. Sometimes I use a nail nose, but this one I could do just by hand. So now you can see the cable stuck in there. Okay. All right, we'll put this together in reverse order. First thing we're going to do is put the throttle cable on. Slide the cable down through the slot. Okay. We'll thread it on there by hand, but we won't tighten it with a wrench yet because we're going to have to adjust it. Alright, so now we have this little brass piece. Stick it over the end of the cable. Make sure that's seated good. Okay. Now I'm going to open the throttle up. Put my finger inside the throat of the carburetor. This is kind of tricky, guys. Alright, finally got it pushed in. Now the cable just going to go into a groove it has right there. Okay. Now make sure that it works properly. Goes to idle and then goes wide open. Okay. Now you want to make sure there's a little bit of slack in it. You see I barely touched the throttle. You see the cable wiggles, but the butterfly doesn't move yet. Okay, we want a little bit of play there, because sometimes when you turn the wheel, if the cable is too tight, when you turn the wheel, it can throttle it up. Okay, I've seen that several times. You get on the four-wheeler, you turn it like this, and it'll just start moving on its own. And that's dangerous. So we always make sure there's a little bit of slack in there. Okay, so that way you can hit the throttle a little bit without it doing anything. And then just snug it back down like it was. Tighten the jam nut against it. Okay. All right, now we'll put the cover back over it. It came with a new one, but the old one still has the form to fit down in there well. And so it's normally easier just to reuse the old seal, because all it is just a dust cover. Okay. I see lots of these carburetors that have this side cover missing. Yikes. Because these little screws are kind of hard to get started and people just throw them away. Okay, once they're all started, then you can use a screwdriver, or cheat like I do, use a little impact driver. Just run them up. Okay. I always check them by hand. Don't get them too tight, you'll never get them off next time. Okay. Throw your tools around. Now this hose, remember, it slipped up through here. I went through that right there. Now we're going to put the choke cable in it. So just slip it in there. Okay. Get it lined up best you can, because this nut is made out of plastic and you can cross thread them very easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it where I can turn this nut easier, because it's really hard to turn the nut. It has this rubber boot on it. Try not to stab yourself in the finger with it. Okay, and just I'm going to slip this boot off. Hopefully that'll help to turn it easier. Well, look at that, it popped right back on. Sometimes these are easy to put on and sometimes they're a real bear. This one is giving me trouble. Now, this nut will be able to turn easier now. I should be able to get it lined up. Okay, it's threaded all the way in by hand. Now, I'll use a wrench to tighten it. Try this one. Don't ever use a wrench until it's all the way up by hand, because I'm telling you, they break easy. I know from experience. Okay, let's get this barely snug. Push that boot back up on it. Okay. Push that one down there. Just looks cleaner. All right. So now we're ready to install it back on the intake manifold. We'll get this one out of the way. so it slides in the manifold, if you can see that well. And it needs to go all the way up seated. So grab it, push, twist it as you push it in, knowing where that'll get it. Also make sure your carburetor is level side to side. Don't put it in there like that. Okay, it'll flood itself to death. Okay, make sure it's pretty. You don't want it like that. You want it to be level. You can just use your eyeball. You don't have to perfect on it. Now we'll tighten the manifold clamp down. Okay. So now the carburetor is mounted. Alright, so go ahead and we'll run this drain line. This is an overflow tube. Okay. I believe the other one was just running right down through here. Okay. So what that does is if the float needle inside the bowl sticks and the carburetor fills too full of gas, instead of the gas going into your engine, the gas will go out this overflow tube and run on the ground. Okay. So now we'll go ahead and put our intake boot, not our intake boot, our air intake boot back on. Alright. So it's nice when they're new, fairly new and flexible. Old Suzukis are bad for these boots to get real hard and crack easy. That's not any fun. So twist it as you work it on there. Okay, I got this one on. Now I'll take this little pick, see that curved in, and just walk around the inside the boot. Try not to poke a hole in the boot. I'll put those two screws back in the clamps. Sometimes they're kind of hard to hold, so I get this one here you can be able to see better. I'll hold it together with my thumb until I get my drill on it. Alright, now it's started. Better put it down like it's supposed to be. Second clamp. Get it started. Okay, started now. I'll roll this clamp down. Get this one put in position. Also, this intake boot, you want to have it turned right where it fits the carburetor correctly, because it has a bend, it has an angle to it. Okay, so once you've got it turned to where it needs to be, you go ahead and tighten the clamps up. And I can see a little bit of a problem here. This carburetor is apparently slightly shorter than the factory. So that's aftermarket for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump the camera and loosen this clamp a little bit, and this one as well. I'm going to slide the boot up a little bit onto the carburetor. So I want to seal them both real well. Okay. Alright, now it's on the carburetor, seated well. Alright, now those are tight. So now we're going to put the fuel line back on it. Just put a zip tie back on it. That's how this guy had it done. The guy that owns the four-wheeler. And most of the time that works well. Pull it out where it seats it real tight. Alright, now we're going to turn the fuel on. So it comes in the fuel filter. It's running through it. It's filling the carburetor up, and then you'll see it stop. There it goes. Now the carburetor is full because the air bubble traveled up the line, so we know we're good. All right, let's see if it'll start. Alright, so the carburetor is complete. Now we're going to do the air filter. Put it in there. I never run them without the air filter, but I would just start them up for just a couple seconds and make sure that the carburetor is good before I finish putting everything else back together. Now we've got a new air filter for it. Armortech AF402A. These foam air filters have to be oiled. I see lots of new foam air filters put in four-wheelers that are dry. A dry foam filter does nothing but keep big things out, like mice. Won't keep them out very long. But there's nothing to trap small dirt particles. That's what the oil is for. So this one, look at this filter. It's so brittle, you can touch it and it just stays there like a piece of cake. But don't eat it. All right, so we're going to slip the inside out of it. Okay. We'll slip it into the new one. Make sure it looks the same. Poke through that in. So now we've got the inner cage on it. I've been using this Honda foam air filter oil. They also have some different brands come in spray can, but the spray can doesn't last very long with me doing these all the time. So what I do is I pour a cap full. This is a very thick oil. And I just kind of let it drizzle on it. Just kind of wipe off the excess. This is the best way I found to do it, using the thick oil out of the bottle. The spray can is quicker and easier, but it's much more expensive. It doesn't last as, one can doesn't last me as long. Pretty simple little job. All right, now we got the sides done. Okay, that's gonna catch the dirt. So now we're gonna pour down the bottom. Looks like it needs a little bit more. Now guys, it's good to check your air filter at least every time you change your oil. Most of the time when I change the oil, I'll re-oil an air filter. Dust it off, get all the, brush off the excess dirt. Sometimes I'll put a filter cleaner on it, wash it out in soap with water, and clean it out real well and start fresh. Most of the time, I just brush off a filter and then reapply the oil on it, and it does real good. Okay. Like to rub in the excess, make sure it seats in there real good. Alright, so now we're ready to install the filter back in. Alright, now this will go into that groove right there and tighten down. If I can get it on there. Sometimes they're kind of hard to line up. There it goes. Get that air filter oil on my snap-on screwdriver. Keep your tools clean and in order. You always know where they're at. Be more efficient. Now we'll snap the lid back on. Let's see. Get it clipped on there. Slice that back. Slice that back. Air filter's in it. The side covers back on. This one goes on that side. Remember, it pops in here and then slides down. And we've got our push pins. We pushed them in to get them to release. Now we're just going to push them back out like that. Pop them in and then make them flush, and they'll stay in there, Lord willing. Be careful you don't break these little fingers. They're kind of fragile. There it is. Alright, so one last check after it's run. We make sure that we don't have any leaks. Always make sure your overflow tube is dry. Touch your thumb to it, make sure you don't have any gas coming out of it. That one's still dry. Thank the Lord. Okay. Just take it back in there. And hopefully the shop floor will be dry from now on. Slip this one. We got these fingers that go in these holes. Grooves up here. Got one here, it snaps in. Then right here, there's one. You twist it, just pop right in there. And that'll do it. Now we're going to start it and drive it and make sure it accelerates good, doesn't stumble or have any issues. Most of the time, aftermarket carburetors do real well, but sometimes you have to change the jets and adjust the metering rod. So I'll show you one of those real quick, so that way you know what to do. So if you get a new carburetor that idles good but stumbles on acceleration, or it feels like it's too lean, or maybe it feels like it's too rich, this is the metering rod inside the carburetor. As you can see, that it has a snap ring here, and there's 3 grooves. It's snapped into the middle one. Carburetors always start out in the middle one, but if it's running too lean, you take this clip out and snap it in the next notch down. That'll make it a little bit richer on acceleration. Okay. Most of the time, carburetors don't need any adjustment, but sometimes they do. And that's how you adjust your too lean or too rich on acceleration or just driving. So there you go, guys. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something. I love teaching people. I had to learn a lot of things the hard way. My dad taught me a lot of things. So I hope to share them with you and benefit you. So hit the like button, hit subscribe, and we'll be dropping another video soon. See you next time.